We have quite a remarkable rifle or carbine to show you today. This is a Nordic Marksman Anschutz 1771. What an interesting carbine, I have to say, with the thumbhole stock. And the caliber you may never have heard of, although some of you probably have. 4.6 by 30. Background to the 4.6 by 30 is well documented, and I won't go into the details, but there was a competition some time ago for governments to develop a light recoiling, deep penetrating round with virtually no weight to it and no recoil, like I said. And the 4.6 by 30 was developed by Heckler and Koch, a German company, of course, and FN, Fabrique Nationale, and its associates developed the 5.7. The 5.7 ended up winning, quote unquote, because it's the more popular round and was adopted more than the 4.6 by 30, but technically they never were actually able to reach a conclusion. I was very lucky and was contacted by Nordic Marksman, and they told me that they had a Anschutz model 1771 in 4.6 by 30. This configuration is particularly appealing with the thumbhole stock. I think it's fantastic. But the reason I'm kneeling actually is to show you the rounds, so that you have an idea what I'm talking about. So this box of ammunition from Fiocchi I bought, oh my goodness, maybe 5 years ago. Sometimes I buy ammunition for guns I don't own just because I had heard of the round and wanted to look at it. That's the 4.6 by 30 on your left. And I thought it would be useful for you to see the 222 for comparison. And that's an 8 by 57. And this round, this may not look like something, but it really is something. And we'll shoot it in this remarkable Anschutz 1771. Here's the magazine, and you can see that the magazine has been abbreviated. You can see the spacer here, because this same magazine is used for 300 Blackout, and I have the same rifle also from Nordic Marksman in 300 Blackout, and that's another one of those rifles where it puts my personal shooting ability to shame. That 300 Blackout is unbelievable. So is this 4.6 by 30. By the way, these holes, this is one of those AR 500 or something steels. That's from other cartridges. Anyway, we did some test shooting with the 4.6, and this is, like I said, remarkably accurate. And the penetration is as H and K represented. Something else, those don't look like small bullets. I don't know if you're getting an angle on this cartridge, but the bullet is actually quite long. And what I should do though is I wanted to show you a magazine that was given to me, and I'll set that down carefully. I thought this would be meaningful to gun owners around the world. I was chatting with a friend of mine, Adrian, in the UK, and he was talking about guns and so on. I thought this cover would be meaningful to everyone. Of course, Canada is the latest victim in this popular persecution of gun owners. And I was actually talking to I guess you'd say a historian, and he was explaining to me that what governments seem to do over the past 100 years, but probably past 1,000 years, is pick a group and allege all kinds of badness to the group to get public sentiment against that group, and then continue persecuting them. And then once the governments have struck fear into the minds of the public that this group has done bad things and is going to do more bad things, the government can then take away their belongings and continue to persecute them, and the public may even be cheering until it's all over and the public looks back and thinks, what did that group actually do? And most of the time, the group has done nothing. But I think gun owners generally do nothing except go shooting and hunting. But they present a different story. But very good cover, very good magazine. And I thought I'd share that with you. So getting back to why we're here, what can I tell you about this carbine? So, as you know, I generally like traditional stocks, but the thumb hole in this case it's actually extremely convenient because the carbine almost handles like a pistol. By the way, we're up in the mountains again, and where I'm crouching here, this was covered with snow. But it changes, so we're in kind of a fog bank right now. Anyways, absolute natural beauty. I don't have the scope covers on because I just finished sighting in, and the barrel on this, which is maybe 16 inches, is threaded, but obviously I don't have a suppressor, but I could put a muzzle brake, but there's no recoil. Or muzzle lift that I'm aware of. Picatinny rail, fantastic stock, fantastic trigger. I mean, overall as a rifle, I would have, or a carbine, I would have to say, out of 100, it would be hard to find a fault with this Anschutz 1771. I don't know if we could actually focus on this, but sometimes I make videos and people email me or whatever, and they actually don't believe that what I have is what I have. So you can see 4.6 by 30. Yeah, just very unusual round. So 4.6, I guess that's about 18 caliber. 17 would be a little smaller. And just before we start shooting, I'll just share a little bit of personal background. So I probably, maybe started shooting earlier than most people. As I've explained, I was always interested in machines. And I remember at that time, my favorite cartridge was the 7x57 Mauser. And it probably still is the 7x57 Mauser, but the people that I knew were mostly older than me and had more money than I did, and they were buying 300 Win Mag, 7mm Remington mag, and bigger cartridges. And they were so impressive, and they could hit things so far away, and better shots than I was at the time. And what's happened is really interesting. If you line up cartridges, it's been kind of a reversal. I think the arms industry, hunting, and so on, the 6.5 Creedmoor is a lot smaller than a 300 Win Mag, and the 7x57 looks right at home. I think people maybe are buying cartridges that are realistic. Of course, more power is never bad. We know that from V8 engines, but on the other hand, you get a lot of recoil with these magnums and burning a lot of powder, and maybe you don't need to be burning all that powder. Not that that's a big deal, and of course it's a personal preference thing. And now what seems to be happening with these personal defense rounds, which this is, this 4.6 by 30 and the 5.7, people are realizing that, engaging targets at reasonable distances, reasonable, I would say 300 yards and less, this 4.6, you are going to hit every time. There is no recoil. I don't know how fast the bullet is going because I didn't chronograph it. We wanted to yesterday, and then we couldn't even see up here. And in the H&K pistol or semi-auto or full auto carbine, I think that is like not that fast. But I have a hunch this is going probably 3,000 feet per second, maybe more. It's a small bullet, but anyway, we can talk about ballistics another time, and you're better at looking up all this stuff than I am anyway. So getting back to the carbine, I probably am talking too much. Very simple. So I preloaded it and I thought it was 4 rounds, and maybe it's supposed to be 4 rounds, but it turned out that 5 went in, and so that's self-explanatory. The trigger is kind of a target trigger. You see how it's laid out? And if I fire too soon, I've done that a few times with this carbine. It's because I'm used to actually worse triggers. That sounds funny, but this one breaks like glass, and it's very light. But anyway, I mainly wanted you to see this amazing Anschutz carbine, ideal for almost every purpose. I wouldn't hesitate to take this for coyotes or anything like that within reasonable range. And I think anybody can hit just about anything with the 5.7 or this, which is probably also true of the 222 and the 223. But those tend to be snappy cartridges, therefore the military wanted something even lighter, although I'm missing a whole bunch of details, which some of you may know. Anyhow, we'll take a couple of shots here with this beautiful carbine. And it comes, by the way, with, well, I don't know if they have any 4.6 by 30s at that Nordic Marksman, but they might. Or maybe you'll find them someplace else, or maybe somebody else will chamber these. I hope they do. The 17 Hornet is really good. I like that as well. And the 17 HMR, but this is a different league of cartridges, different thinking. And anyway, center fire is arguably always better than rim fire. Oh, and people ask me about the scope, so I don't know what I put on this. I think it's a Variax 2 or 3, and it seems to be a 3 by 9. Amazingly clear glass. Like Leopold just seems to be getting better and better. I don't know if it's the perfect scope, but it's what I had around. We all do this kind of thing, and so it's there. And in terms of, people ask me accuracy, well, I'm lousy at that, setting up targets, but I did it anyway, so it's kind of, in a target shooter's hands, I would say it's probably a 1/4 inch or a 1/2 inch at 100 yards. And that's, with me on a table and a rest. But I always think it's more meaningful to shoot offhand. So we have our usual steel plate, and we'll shoot it now, and you can see it in operation. The ammo, I wanted to show you the Fiocchi, and this is that military, I assume it's military stuff. It's, you can see it's in German, but you can see 4.6 millimeter times 30. I think that's pronounced Sing-Shoss, but I embarrassed myself. 40 shots. And yeah, I mean, this is a round I think that anyone would find useful, even though when you first think of it, you may wonder why it exists. But, and by the way, you can learn a lot from the architecture of the brass. If I fiddled around with photography, the scale, the proportions, you could say that's a 30-06 or a 308. It's not a, imbalanced cartridge shape, if you know what I mean. All right, well, we'll take a look at this shooting. So, did I notice anything about the operation of the rifle? No, other than its perfection, Anschutz, and it has plastic bolt knob, no big deal. Close the action. Very simple, very straightforward. There is no muzzle blast, as far as I know. I don't detect any, because the cartridge is so small. I'm assuming most of the powder burns in the chamber, or, by here it's probably mostly burned. But one would have to film, in poor light to see whether there is some flame. There's our AR-500, and again, it's just to show you the operation and introduce you to a new class of cartridges that's remarkably useful, at least in my humble opinion. So here we go. And like I said, this is fantastic. I like traditional, but the way Anschutz has laid out this thumb hole, you know, it's not bad to have a free hand. Anyway, yeah. Yeah, so you can see, or I hope you can see, it's virtually a flawless rig. Oh, and that shot that I pulled over the target, that's that thing. This may sound funny. I have to make the trigger heavier. I'm used to more weight on, and everybody's always tuning their triggers down. You know, a lot of these guns that I buy for the channel or whatever are used, and the people have tuned them right down. In fact, I'm almost always making trigger pull heavier. I think there should be resistance. This is, again, just my opinion, but it's probably worth something. And if you have gloves on or it's cold, I can't feel my hands. We're at 0 Celsius here, and I think there should be some resistance. But this is just a steel plate, not far away. If we sat down at a table and had a rest, this is essentially a target rifle. You can, you know, I think you can accomplish anything accuracy-wise. All right, well, as usual, a lot on my mind, and I hope that you register this very interesting carbine. Like I said, if you don't like this kind of stock, I think there's an American style stock, which arguably is toward an English style stock, and then there's a Germanic stock with, you know, a folded linen cheek piece. But for this particular application, I think the thumb hole is just about like it's ideal. It's an instinctive stock. So, all right, well, thank you very much for watching and being patient with my talking and what I have to say. Take care, and we'll see you next time.